And if you tweak the truth and you twist the vocabulary, it will certainly eliminate the feelings of guilt, sadness, and shame that reside inside of you, or will it? It certainly did not for this man. Dr. Bernard Nathanson. In the mid-1960s, he campaigned vigorously for legalized abortion, and he pushed it with all of his strength and might. He danced the Irish jig in 1973 when abortion on demand was set out before the public. And in 1973, Dr. Nathanson became the chief of obstetrics at St. Luke's Hospital Center. He organized a sophisticated perinatal unit complete with an electronic fetal monitoring device. And the first time that Dr. Nathanson looked at the ultrasound in action, he was absolutely blown away. He said, I saw a little heart with all 4 chambers throbbing. And then I was able to see the baby's forehead, eyes, mouth, hands, and toes perfectly formed. Dr. Nathanson said, during the course of the scan, my mind dropped the word fetus, and I began using the word baby. And then he said my emotions went from happiness to horror as I asked myself, how many little ones like this one had I ripped to pieces with my instruments? One day, Dr. Nathanson had a brainstorm. Since an ultrasound could reveal a baby in the womb, he thought, certainly it could witness an abortion. And so he asked a colleague who was performing several abortions a day to put an ultrasound device on one of the patients and, with their permission, tape the process. Now, Dr. Nathanson, from experience, knew exactly what happened during an abortion. But when he was able to watch it on film, he was horror-struck at what he saw. He witnessed tiny bodies being torn limb from limb. And even more sickening, he said, the ultrasound showed the babies desperately trying to struggle away from the suction apparatus, which was pulling its very life. One 12-week-old continued to struggle even after it had been severely maimed, opening his mouth and what looked like a horrifying scream of fear and pain. And he created the film and called it The Silent Scream. And then Dr. Nathanson began to force abortion supporters to acknowledge what you're doing is murder. And I will prove it to you by what I could show you medically and scientifically. The doctor felt good about stopping abortions, but he couldn't stop the guilt and the sadness and the shame that resided in his soul. And so he plunged into depression. He tried various types of self-help books, therapy, medication. Nothing washed clean. Nathanson said, I felt the burden of my sin growing heavier and more insistent, and I was afraid of facing God with my actions someday. And finally, through a miraculous chain of events, Bernard met the one who died on the cross for him. He gave his life totally to the Lord Jesus Christ. And at his baptismal service, Dr. Nathanson said, "Today I felt all my fear fall away, and I experienced sheer grace." Wow. That's good news for Dr. Nathanson. Believe it or not, in all that I've shared with you today, there's good news for our country because of men like him. January the 14th, 2013, a week ago, I picked up Time magazine, and here's what the cover read. 40 years ago, abortion rights activists won an epic victory with Roe v. Wade. They've been losing ever since.